you guys don't know, Summon Sorceress, one of the most historically broken cards of all time, got a fucking errata because I believe that the OCG printed like a new Master Duel thing. I don't know, who cares? But all we know is that Summon Sorceress got an errata. The materials are still the same, everything about it's still the same, but its effect is all now one singular effect. So before, Summon Sorceress used to have two effects, one of which was summoning a monster to your opponent's field, and the other one was to target a monster it pointed to. Didn't have to be on your opponent's field, by the way, but you would summon something with the same type from your deck or something, and it had its effects negated. Now this is one of my most favorite cards of all time. I think it might actually be the second most favorite card right underneath Ash Blossom, just because there were so many silly things that Summon Sword could do. I think one of my most favorite things was playing it in zombies, and when I had Zombie World out, you could target like Glow Up Bulb and summon Mizuki from your deck. Oh my god, you could make Naturia Beast. It was beautiful. This whole idea kind of pulled up this whole discussion regarding the idea of erratas. A lot of people, for some reason, really dislike erratas. But first, this video was brought to you guys by Imperium Duelist. Imperium makes some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh accessories and apparel, full stop. In fact, I religiously used their cherubim oversleeves for over a year at one point. And speaking of accessories, we've come together to create the Hoppin' Around Playmat. You're all my little drama frogs, and I wanted to create a piece of art that is actually some form of usable merch. It comes in two colors, monochrome and hot pink, which is my favorite color by the way, and I am in love with how they turned out, both the single and two player variants. Pick up a playmat, be sure to use my code Stevie10 on all products for their site for a 10% off discount, and be sure to tag us when yours comes in. I don't know why, a lot of people really like erratas, and I don't know why. Some people will just defend erratas like it's their fucking day job. And I think that erratas are some of the stupidest fucking things that you could do to Yu-Gi-Oh overall. Most people's first card game is usually something like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon. These games are pretty constant in, you know, just instead of errata-ing a card, they usually will just print a new version of a card. They'll just print like a different ball instead of like errata-ing Ultra Ball to be like, oh, you can only discard like you have to discard 4 cards instead of 2 or something. But there's so many cards on like the errata list that have just been absolutely fucking neutered. Now, I'm not gonna say that some of these cards didn't deserve to be banned, or that there have been cases in which erratas are, you know, actually a good thing. Like when you look at the historical text of Necro Valley and just how fucked this card is in terms of text, like this is a card that definitely needed an errata for, like, you know, actual clarity's sake or PSET's sake, or, you know, that type of deal. But there's so many people who are like, yeah, erratas are good, we need erratas. Like in Farfacord, Sangan, and these cards are all still playable. Like, yes, a card could still be playable, but why not just ban the card? You know what I mean? Like, in my opinion, the existence of erratas kind of ruined the legacy of a card. It ruins like what a card kind of stands for, instead of, you know, just like leaving it on the list and being like, all right, we're not going to touch you until the game speeds up fast enough until we can bring you back, like they do with basically every other card. For some reason, Konami has this weird like pick and choose when it comes to this card, this card, this card, this card. These are all going to stay banned, but like these specific cards, for whatever fucking reason, like Dark Strike Fighter or Red MD, we're gonna bring back in like this weird shitty neutered form. Like Dark Strike Fighter went from being like one of the silliest FTK enablers to being like absolutely useless. Red MD went from being like the most broken shit of all time to being like the most okay fine card to ever do it. Additionally, some people were like, oh well, this is what the card was originally supposed to do, and by doing it like this, it'll fix the ban list. Spoiler alerts, I don't think ban list length is a real concern. I'm not even joking. When you look at Yu-Gi-Oh and problems they should be fixing, is ban list size something that comes to mind? Are there a lot of cards that are on that list that should be taken off? Yes, absolutely. But I don't think that the solution to taking cards off of the list is by creating shittier new versions of old cards. Like, that kind of just doesn't make sense. What about situations where a card's effect is mistranslated or creates an unintended rule difference between the OCG/TCG? Should that receive an errata? Well, first of all, I think that the game being split between the OCG and TCG is stupid as hell. And secondly, Konami should do a better job when it comes to their rulings, instead of just being like, fuck it. We're just gonna let the judges decide. That's where we end up with like situations with transaction rollback. Like sometimes you could declare with a virus and sometimes you can't declare without a virus in like the TCG, but you can in like the OCG. At least in like really shitty scenarios that should just be cleaned up on Konami's part, the need for erratas between like OCG and TCG cards is more of a symptom of Konami's just like shitty translation department and card design rather than an actual root problem within the game itself. Yeah, there was also like this idea of where Konami actually did try and print like this quote unquote new card in the form of like Ultimate Offering, which is like this new retrained version of Ultimate Offering. First of all, extremely funny that they mentioned the word meat in the name. And secondly, again, Scarlin's mentioning like, this card sucks. It's never going to be played. It's functionally an errata. Like, how is this different than just, you know, retraining Ultimate Offering? Well, first of all, Ultimate Offering, like many of the other cards on the ban list, is a card that actually can come back once enough time has passed. Like, let's look at the ban list right now. Like, there are a good amount of cards here that can very, very easily come back. Like, not without any errata. Like, are you telling me that, like, Phyrexian Cluster Amaryllis and, like, Samsara Lotus need retrains? Are you trying to tell me that Phyrexian Cluster Amaryllis needs like a hard once per turn? No, it just like takes away from the card. Do you really believe that Victory Dragon needs an errata? Do you think that MX Saber Invoker is one of those cards that's going to stay on the ban list for like the rest of time? Spoiler alerts, cards like Invoker, they are generally unhealthy and they're kind of shitty and poopy for the game, but they are cards that 100% can come back in their pure hearted form, and we don't need to like ruin and neuter a card. Remember this guy? Remember Firewall Dragon? Oh my god, this card was the stuff of dreams and nightmares. This was everything I'd ever wanted. Do you guys remember pre-errata Firewall? Oh my god, it was a bounce. It was recycling. It was an FTK enabler. Oh, it was beautiful. When you were just linking off monsters and just shitting out advantage with Firewall, it was like manna from heaven. And now, when you look at the errata, hard once per turn, and it's only Cyberses. Tell me right now, what does this card do? Tell me any point this card has been playable in any capacity. Like, this is a card that could have just 100% like stayed on the ban list until we reached a point in time where maybe, just maybe, Firewall loops could be brought back into the game. But no, we just had to fucking kneecap it. Alright, here's like the actual good example, where it's like, Dark Strike Fighter, do you really need this card? Like, let's be real. If old Dark Strike Fighter came back, do you guys think it would be good? You would have to basically find a way to infinitely loop levels, which, I mean, it's possible, but I don't think that Dark Strike Fighter is a card you necessarily have to be worried about within a format. I don't think that completely ruining a card where you can only use this during your main phase 1 and making it a hard once per turn. Like, this card isn't even the same card anymore. You might as well just print it like Tremendouser Fire. The best example is Yugioh Guardian. Oh my god. Why did they need to reprint this card? Why did they need to errata this card? Why did they need to give it an Earth tuner? It made no sense. It was so silly. Like, was this card like super fucking good? Yes. And I think that good cards should be allowed to exist. I don't think good cards should have to have their legs chopped off and brought back into the game because, oh, it takes up ban list space. Blah, 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 blah. No one fucking cares about ban list space. What I care about is the word space where it says one Earth tuner. Because if I have to make a fucking glow up bulb in order to summon a Yugioh Guardian, I am going to shoot myself. It's not because the concept of an errata is bad though. AFD is an example of a good errata. I'm not saying that there aren't good erratas. There are exceptions to the rule. We do have stuff like Sangan and like Witch of the Black Forest. Like let's be real. This card in its old form would be the most fucking broken shit of all time. Let's not fucking kid ourselves. But what I am saying is that these cards are, again, exceptions to the rule. The rule of cool still states that most cards that got errated kind of just got fucking kneecapped and left outside the Chevys. Every extremely relevant card that has been errated within like the past 5 or 10 years has basically seen like zero fucking play. Like, you can delude yourself into thinking like Sangan into Almirage, search Orange Knight, Mech Knight guy. Like, you can delude yourself into thinking that. Sure, I'm not going to hold that against you. But what I am saying is that relative to what these cards once stood for and once were and that sort of deal, I think that is just extremely silly and not necessary and bad and dumb. But that's just my opinions on erratas. I think that erratas for the most part are kind of just silly. I don't think they're necessary. And overall, I don't think erratas are necessary. Just give us a new card. Just give us like 5-10 years, leave it on the ban list, and maybe one day when Come Summoning becomes the new FTK strategy, we can bring back Firewall. wall.